Hi, this is episode 10 of Data Product Mindset. I'm Anthony Cosgrove, the co-founder of Harbour. Harbour is a private data marketplace platform for governing the discovery, access, and use of data products. Today, I'm joined by Nicolas Averseng, the founder and CEO of Yooi. Yooi is a data product management tool that enables full lifecycle management of data and AI products. Nicolas, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Great pleasure.
Indeed. So why don't we just dive straight in? It'd be good to kind of hear more about what you're doing at Yooi. People are probably also wondering kind of why Yooi, like what's behind the name. So yeah, over to you. Educate us.
So as you said, we are basically a data and AI product management platform, or sometimes I call that more portfolio management platform for data and AI. The thing is that how, as an organization, you really drive your transformation program by using products, and products are key to that transformation, to drive adoption, to drive not just building data sets and throwing them over the fence, but really building things that are going to be used and that are going to drive the transformation. And there is always that huge gap that we see in organization between all the technical tools for practitioners to build data pipeline, build analytics, build AI model, etc., and the non-technical people who are going to maybe consume that at the end and have needs. And so it's really hard to orchestrate those programs usually because you have a lot of different stakeholders who are involved, from data people, IT people, business people, risk and compliance, finance, etc. And so how do you bring visibility? How do you align, etc., etc.? And so to what you said, Yooi comes from it's a word coming from Japanese to say which means simple.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and the whole goal of Yooi from the beginning is to build simplicity, to bring simplicity in the data and AI program, and to really help facilitating that end-to-end management.
Awesome. So obviously, at the heart of your tool is the construct of data product management. How do you think about data products? And we all love hearing examples of data products because there's just so many out there that are really interesting. So kind of how do you think about them, and how would you bring that to life with some examples?
So I tend to not think. I think the first part of a data product is not technical. It's essentially what is a product, and I always summarize that by two main dimensions. Is that I will say bad things afterwards, but so the two main criteria, and the only two criteria for me, is that you need to build something for actual consumers, so for users. So that's the main dimension. If it's not client driven, customer driven, it's not a product.
Yeah.
And the second dimension is that it has a life cycle. So it's not just something you build one time. It's something that is going to be living. So you need to, when you build a product, you need to think about how you're going to maintain that, how you're going to evolve that, how you're going to support your clients, and so on and so on. So I think that the two really foundational dimension of what makes a product versus, a project-based approach, or just delivering a dashboard and you're going to let it live for some time. And then everything else comes afterwards, in terms of what do you need to support those goals, in terms of team topology, in terms of maybe APIs, maybe SLAs, maybe contracts, etc. But depending on the nature of the product, you need to adjust on those things. And also, I believe that data products can be of different nature. So depending on who you're going to sell that to, it could be just raw data that you can send. It could be a file that you send sometime. It could be a live feed. It could be a dashboard. It could be an AI model with an actual UI for end users. So it can have a lot of different shape and forms, as long as it's a product that delivers value to the client based on data or based on AI. And it's a very open definition in a way,
Yep.
but an important one for me in what makes a product, basically.
Yeah, look, and for what it's worth, I couldn't agree more. I think we tend to see lots of different types of products for different use cases and for different user personas. And I think, it's refreshing to hear someone else talking about this sort of very open definition of what a product is or isn't. Ultimately, as you said, that foundational bit of who's the customer, what value you're delivering, and how are you delivering that over time. That's critical. And then everything else is, I guess, to a degree, sort of optional, or at least depends on those components.
Yeah, it's what I always say, that you shouldn't confuse the end and the means to achieve the end. So at the end, all those things are means. It's like, what do you need to deliver the value you're expecting to deliver? How you make that accessible? How you make that usable, and so on. But yes, too often people confuse means with a goal and the end, and that's driving a lot of problems in a way. And when you see some organization trying to deploy a data mesh and just focusing on my data mesh is just going to be raw data products basically, and never thinking about what is the value, who is going to use that, how it's going to serve any high level use cases. And like, how are you going to do that? How do you know you succeeded your mission? And so, or is that mission just what I call sometimes a vanity metric? You've
Yeah,
covered, how much have you covered in terms of data being accessible? But if
yes,
it's the wrong data with the wrong quality or with the wrong structure and so on, it's just it's a vanity metric in the sense that it drives completion, it doesn't drive value.
yeah, perfect, super clear. And I mean, we've sort of inevitably sort of started cantering a little bit through this, just sort of sharing some of the challenges that you've seen. What are the critical lessons that you've learned about data products, or that you kind of see other people learning about data products? I mean, within your platform, you've got a lot of frameworks and a lot of ways for people to be quite structured in their thinking and progress through, quite defined stages, kind of on rails. I assume a lot of that is actually from kind of critical lessons you've learned and starting to apply solutions to.
Yeah, it's because basically it's every company has tons of data, tons of opportunities. So the first question is, where should we start? What should we prioritize? What should be products? And that's something we've discussed in the past, is that not everything is supposed to become a product in the company. So because it comes with cost, it comes with investment, so you have to make choices.
Yeah,
And so the main idea is, how do we guide everyone around along that path on how do you identify the right demands, how do you prioritize them the right way, how do you but also how do you qualify all of that. So making sure that you can assess, what is first, what is what is the value you expect from that, and who's going to need to use that, but also along the way, what does it take to build it? What are the risks associated to that, maybe, because that drives some additional costs or some mitigation or some question of, is it worth it? And it's true for data, and it's true for AI and for analytics and so on. So it's always gathering all the material to be able to have that kind of disciplined way of choosing where we want to invest and making sure that you can then drive the value and really knowing, okay, this is where we go because this is how it's going to support our transformation. This is how it's going to also make sure we don't take unexpected risks, especially, with there is a lot more and more regulation in all our countries, basically, and so the risk part can't be overlooked, because it's pretty bad, if you get hurt by that, because it's not only, it could be an image risk, but it could be also more than on top of reputation, it can also be fines or and hefty fines potentially. So yeah, and the challenge around that is that it's you need input from a lot of different people to be able to do that assessment. So that's where it becomes tricky, because everyone in the company needs his small angle around that process. But yeah, what we see is that trend of how to make that a disciplined approach really, and how to make that, because this is how you scale, across the company, because it's easy to do. If you just want to do your first product, maybe it's fairly
Yeah.
easy. Just pick one, build it, and you're going to learn over time. But then at some point, the question is, how do you make that, a scalable machine in a way, where you'll be able to get more and more people, and there you want to build maybe reusable products across the company and not have the same one built slightly different ways by 10 different teams,
Yeah.
which unfortunately happens. So kind of building that discipline and making it scalable is one of the big challenge we work on and we see our clients working on.
And is that, I mean, is that an area where you see people struggling? I mean, that idea of like, I built one, so I'm good. And we talk about, and we hear about scale a lot in terms of how you scale consumption of a product.
Mm.
But here you're really talking about how do you scale the machinery and capability to be able to build multiple products and run them through their life cycle.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, tools like Harbor help with scaling the consumption. So that's making one product accessible with more people. And today, depending on the nature of the product, you have many ways to make that accessible to many people. Either through like a gateway, either just like because it's a dashboard or because you provide that embedded into an application. And again, that's a value driven decision. What is the best way to make that data or that thing available to my target clients?
Yep.
And but yeah, the main thing is, if you want, for a long time, people have talked about becoming data driven, whatever it means. But then, if I would dare a definition, then it means, how do you enable decision at scale or whatever within the organization with data? So it means you need to be very, again, discipline about what data do I provide to whom, with what level of quality to support quality decisions. Because if I provide wrong data, maybe it will drive then wrong decisions potentially.
Yep.
Also, and so yeah, so that's really that other part we're working on, is to have that kind of systematic way of building data products, and more importantly, embedding consumption of data products within business processes.
And when we talk about data products, I mean, you talk about data products and you talk about AI and AI products, and then this concept of like a portfolio. Could you sort of just expand a little bit on that? Because that feels like a relatively new sort of component that's sort of been added in. I guess a lot of organizations are trying to drive value from AI. Inherently, that's often completely interlinked with how they drive value from data as well, and the data that they need to interact with an AI. So to talk us through that and this concept of portfolio management.
Yeah, I think there's two things in what you said. One is that there's a trend, of having CDAO, like Chief Data and AI Officer, which is an interesting one because it's about looking at those two problems as, like siblings. We need good data to do good AI, and AI is a good way to use data and to get extract value from data and so on. So that makes sense. But also, and that's an important trend for me, because we have also seen the opposite trend of having people just thinking about, again, data and putting data accessible, and then having other people thinking about the use case and in the analytics team or in the AI team. So one of the big things we're advocating and pushing for is that you have to think about your data and AI strategy as one, and as one, one topic, because you need to prioritize data and data quality for what you want to achieve or for different use cases. And so that notion of portfolio, it's like when you think about an investment portfolio. The question is, when you do an investment portfolio, it's a discipline approach the same way. You need to think about, what are my opportunities, what are the criteria to select one, how am I going to track delivery over time or track performance over time. And then you have discussions about, should I reinvest? Should I continue development to increase value, or should I divest?
Yep.
And so basically, if you think about it on everything that needs to be built within an organization around data and AI, you need to adopt the same mindset, which is, and that's important because no company will have like one data product. You have tens of them, maybe hundreds of them sometimes. So, so there is that scalability problem that is very quickly appearing, meaning what data do I have, who is going to consume that in terms of services, who is going to pay for that, but also again that question of how can I drive reuse, or should we further invest on things? Can I identify synergies or new ways to monetize the data I have? So all that. So that portfolio mindset really comes from that, what exists from a financial portfolio or product portfolio. And when you think about it as a whole, then you can also have a view on what is the value of my portfolio, and also balancing risk, maybe, because
Yeah.
so it's always about balancing value and risk, not on one product, but
Yeah.
on a portfolio of products.
Awesome. And I think that's just such a nice concept because it does kind of really bring to mind that idea of kind of value maximization,
Mm.
value optimization, driving ROI, managing risk against reward, all of which is really inherent in managing data products that drive value, but sometimes gets lost in those conversations around, the technical specification of a data product, or, does it or does it not need an SLA, a contract, observability, what format's it in, all of those important details, but details nonetheless. I think it also strikes a chord in terms of this idea of treating data as an asset, which I think a lot of people talk about, but I'm not sure a lot of people necessarily do. I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and she sort of said that part of the challenge with that is that data is not often, it's very rarely included as an asset on, the accounting for
Yeah.
most companies. Kind of, do you address that in any way? Like, kind of when you think about your portfolio and when you think about those products, is there a financial component to how you manage that?
Yeah, it's so we can. It's not a we don't mandate that financial dimension. One way, and you've mentioned many times the value angle, and that's very important. And we talk about value, and sometimes people talk about ROI, and voluntarily we don't mention ROI because ROI sometimes has a bias towards short-term value or short-term financial value,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not necessarily a good driver in all cases. So we tend to more work on the concept of value and what value you deliver to the organization. For example, in terms of it
Yeah.
could be against OKRs, it could be against carbon footprint, it could be against employee happiness, it could be against customer satisfaction, NPS, etc., etc. And
Yeah.
then it's good way. And the way we think about value is also about it's a maturity path, and the early maturities, you need to think about value, even if it's purely, let's say, qualitative first, and then you can go to quantification. And ultimately, you can drive to more financial value and to data as an asset from a financial term. And so there's been a lot of good books and material on that, where in the Infonomics or things like that, which are really the kind of foundational on how we really put a data asset in the balance sheet. From what we see, there is very few companies in Europe who've done that. Actually, I believe there is a few in the US. It's more a US centric view of the world for now because it's very financial and so on. So, and some companies have been there. We've seen a few in Europe who are almost there in a way. Have a very structured financial reporting on value of data and and collateral, especially in the um, financial sector, which makes sense because they have
Right.
that mindset also. So it kind of aligns very much with how they think about the world. But so it's a path. Is it going to make sense for any organization? Probably not. But there are a lot of stories where it makes sense for some of them. Like I don't know if you heard the story about I think it's an airline in the US where they discovered that the data value of their loyalty program is actually worth more than the actual airline.
Right.
So then, of course, you want to build a shell company just for that. And so actually, they're not well known, but there is a lot of on the, let's say, data for marketing space, a lot of companies in Europe, in the retail space or around that, who have like data, what's called data co, like data subsidiary, where
Hmm.
really they're only to sell their data to, marketers, ad serving companies, etc., etc. So, and many retail groups have that. So it's and for them, of course, then that data is on their balance sheet because this is their essence, basically. So
Yeah,
I
it's
believe this is what you mostly companies you work with at Harbor, because it's they're, they kind of they get data and really sell that data.
indeed, indeed. So we've counted through quite a bit there in this concept of kind of getting data product management on rails, this concept of having a portfolio, the connectivity between data and AI, and this sort of leaning into almost portfolio management approach,
Mm.
or manage risk and reward. For a lot of people, I think that will be kind of further along than where they are. So I'm going to ask a question for you of like, where do you see the space heading? Like, what comes next? Noting that kind of what you're doing now is probably what comes next, for hopefully, for a lot of people.
Oh, that's a good question. I think question of should any company invest more on data and AI is not really a question. It's kind of a life saving question, probably in the next 10 to 15 years at least. Or if you don't do it now, maybe you pay the cost at some point with newcomers. So it has to be done for competitive reasons, or for to stay ahead of the market and competitive and so on. And in a way, um, many companies are struggling with that because they are doing um, things from a bottom up angle, building, like, believing technology is going to solve the problem, or just being, like a magical way to just because you have a better data platform is not going to drive value. And
Yep.
so for me, the main shift that happens, and the one that I both hope and and expect to see, is that shift to like we call value driven, or that product mindset is saying we need to build maybe less things but more impactful things. And so that means to it's not necessarily building a huge portfolio first, but like any small companies, or VC building a portfolio, you need to build it step by step,
Yep.
and building, in a pragmatic way, and again in a disciplined way, saying, okay, what is the first thing we build? Where are we going? Is it aligned with our direction? What is our roadmap, or what is our backlog that we could invest on? If we prove that what we do in the next 6 months, maybe we can get more budget for that, because then we moved from being, just a cost line in the budget to actually driving value for the organization. So I think that's the main shift that needs to go through for data and AI within organization, is to really become more than like a technical delivery facility, but really becoming a transformation power, basically, something that. And this is where that concept of product really makes sense, because it's product um, for well identified outcomes.
Got it. Got it. So almost sort of, instead of being data driven, being value driven with data.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very driven with data and AI, and because data driven is a technical term, so many people don't like it, and I'm with them. So for me,
Okay.
the main point is that you want to be value driven, and data will help, and
Yeah.
sometimes AI will help on top of that, but and
Mhm.
sometimes not. Sometimes just data, and if you know what you want to achieve, then you can find the right solution for that. But I'm always, saying you need to start with what you want to achieve, and maybe again, if you want to buy bread, maybe you can just walk around. But if you want to go to the other side of the country, maybe you need a car, or
Yeah.
it's a train. So.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, look, unfortunately, that's the end of our time, but what a great point to end it on. Nicolas, thank you for coming on the podcast. Really good to have you here. Loads of really interesting insights there. For anyone listening, you can connect with Nicolas on LinkedIn, and you can also find out more about his company at yooi.com. I'm going to spell that. So it's yooi.com. And if you find that interesting, also check out harbordata.com, where you'll find all the other episodes of Data Product Mindset. Thank you for watching.